Not quite, I regret to say. However, the food there turned out to be a lot better than it was in the police college. There were certainly no worms in the porridge because there was no porridge. For breakfast, we had cornflakes with fresh full cream milk, toast and fried eggs. At 11, we had cookies with fresh orange juice. Supper with fresh meat and sausage or sausages and vegetables and potatoes. It actually really wasn't bad. On the third evening there, we were queuing up for dinner to be served. I was with my best mate, Gideon. We were the only two Sotis amongst a whole bunch of Afrikaners. There was one particular asswipe in front of me who, for no apparent reason, turned around and began making fun of me. I muttered something back to him. I can't remember what it was, but it sounded something, I think it was something like, go fuck your mother. I turned back to say something to Gideon when this guy connected me with a full-on right hook to the mouth. I still have a scar in the corner of my mouth from that. I didn't know what the hell had hit me. I went down like a sack of potatoes and lay there disorientated. I was in no shape to get up and take this guy on. I did, however, file the incident in my memory bank for revenge purposes later, when he least expected it. Anyway, the food was really good. And in spite of that little facade, I realized I was going to like life at Verdrag. It reminded me of home with all the wide open space and a lot of freedom, because that's kind of how I grew up. Our platoon was split up and we were formed into groups of 10 men. Gideon and I got the task of fetching mid-morning snacks. Oh my God. Mid-morning snacks and orange juice from the kitchen. It was a really strange mid-morning snack consisting of shortbread biscuits, nice and tasty, just like Mom used to make, and big military issue urn of orange juice. Gideon and I generally put a few biscuits aside for later to supplement those we got when our group leader dished them out. We also filled our water bottles with orange juice before returning to the bungalow. After a few days of this skimming, the group leader found a pile of goodies in my bedside cupboard. He was furious and decided that we would not have any more biscuits or juice for the rest of the course. As an added punishment, Gideon and I still had the task of going to fetch the stuff from the kitchen and bringing it back to the group. We had a plan. The next day, we went to fetch the biscuits and the juice, and we hid our usual share in the bush on our way back to the bungalow. We also filled our water bottles with orange juice, as the others didn't know that we had also been doing that. I hesitate to tell you this next part. We pissed in the orange juice and took it to the bungalow. Sorry, man. And the rest of the group were laughing and pushing us away and telling us how we weren't going to get any. They were drinking the stuff and making satisfied sounds to show us how good it was. The more they smacked their lips, the harder it was for me and Gideon to keep our faces straight. This went on for the next 3 weeks, and they never discovered they were smacking their lips while drinking our piss. I guess that now it's in this book, they know. Sorry, guys. One evening, it was mine and Gideon's turn to stand guard at the water tower on the top of the hill. It was about 2 clicks away to the east of the camp. We were standing the 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. shift, which was kind of still daylight. And it was reasonably quiet afternoon. We looked at the roster and decided that the scheduled guys to relieve us weren't the sharpest pencils in the box. So we would play a trick on them. We had heard leopards growling in the hills nearby. So we printed realistic-looking tracks in the sand with our fingers and made it look like leopards had just walked through our guard post. We had been issued with an R1 rifle with only 1 round in the magazine. Obviously, we hadn't gained any importance to the government by then. Either that or they didn't expect us to get attacked by an army of more than one. or an army of 5 standing in one straight line. You can put a bullet through all 5 of them with an R1. Our plan to scare the shift relief went like this. Gideon hid in the bush at the back of our guard post. He hid in a hole. I hid in a hole just next to where the leopard tracks went past the front of the guard post. When our replacements arrived, they called for me, but I kept quiet. They eventually found me in the hole and asked me what I was doing there. I put on a great show. I tried to look really scared and told them to jump in the hole with me. They asked me where my buddy was. I told them that because it's only a 4 to 6 shift, that it was in daylight, that only one guard was posted. I said that a leopard had just walked through my guard station and I had jumped in the hole to escape it. The one bloke was a big bodybuilder, and he was listening intently. Gideon, who was in the bushes about 10 meters away, began shaking the foliage around him. At this, the bodybuilder picked up a large rock and hurled it into the bush. I heard a crack and saw Gideon emerging from the bush in a very unsteady fashion. He was bleeding profusely from his chin. The bodybuilder guy grabbed the R1 out of my hands and seemed about to shoot Gideon. Wie gaan daar? Who goes there? He shouted. I didn't know people still actually said that. I thought it only happened in World War II movies. I had to step in quickly and stop him from killing my friend. Gideon didn't look good. He was disorientated and pale from loss of blood. The big dude still didn't catch on. He was asking why Gideon was sitting in the bush and who he was. I thought I'd better get him to the base doctor pronto. Ignoring the bodybuilder and his mate, I took hold of Gideon and began walking back to the base. It occurred to me that hyenas can smell blood from a great distance, and the slow walk turned into a fast run. The blood was squirting out of Gideon's chin like a water pistol. I tore the sleeve off my overall and got him to apply it with pressure to the wound. It actually was quite worrying. He was bleeding quite a lot from this. Must have been an artery that it had struck. We reached the base okay, but were stopped by the duty sergeant when he arrived. He asked what had happened, and I told him that we had a fight rather than giving him the actual truthful explanation. I don't know why. I somehow think that the truth would have served us better. He told us to meet him on the soccer field the next day at lunchtime, but in the meantime, to report to the base hospital immediately. The medic gave Gideon 3 stitches without anesthetic. I kept thinking that tomorrow was going to hurt more. The next day, we reported to the duty sergeant, who was standing on the soccer field with a case of ammunition, a light machine gun, an LMG, and an RSA 53 radio. He said he didn't care who carried what, but we needed to get the lot to the top of the hill he pointed to. It was a big-ass, steep hill called Skiltbult, and it was a scorching hot day. Skiltbult, when directly translated, means a hill that you owe stuff to, like a debt hill. You're in debt. You get the drift. And he told us to report on the radio when we reached the top. I took the RSA 53 radio and the light machine gun while Gideon humped the case of ammunition. We trotted along with our loads as best we could. After about a kilometer, we reached a small dam at the foot of the hill. Then I had a brainwave. Why not open the ammo case, empty its contents into the bush, and fetch it again on the way down? We opened it and discovered an assortment of objects inside. There was a red smoke grenade, some 7.62 millimeter ammunition, some more smoke grenades, and spare batteries for the RSA 53 radio. We dumped the lot and carried on clambering up the hill. It took us about half an hour to get to the top. Of course, it was a lot easier with the empty ammunition case, and we were feeling very chuffed with ourselves and very clever. At the top, I reported to the sergeant that we had reached the top, through the radio, obviously. Little did we know that he had been watching us through his binoculars. He told us to set off the red smoke grenade. Oops, the grenade was at the bottom of the hill with the rest of the shit. The sergeant had clearly done this before, and he knew what to expect. We sprinted down the hill and loaded everything back into the case, and we ran back up the hill as fast as we could. As we reached the top, the sergeant signaled us to come back down and meet him at the camp fence. So we bounded back down the hill, this time making sure we had all our kit, radio, and LMG. Do you think I'm a fucking stupid asshole? Do you think I've only been doing this job since yesterday? Get the fuck back up the hill and contact me on the radio when you get there. We scurried back up the hill, dragging the ammunition and everything else with us. It took about half an hour to reach the top again. Victor Delta for Victor Delta 1, over. I was panting and my head was hanging. Gideon was bent over, resting on his knees, and we were totally winded. What the fuck do you want, Victor 1? The sergeant sounded as if he'd had enough of us, but he obviously didn't think we had enough of him. We're at the top, Victor Delta. Why the fuck are you telling me? Just get off the red smoke grenade, like I told you, fuckface. I set off the red smoke grenade and got a big mouthful of the powdery red smoke down my throat. I thought I was going to die. Actually, I hoped I was going to die. Get the fuck back down here and fetch another red smoke grenade, fuckface. I suddenly realized that my new name was Fuckface. It could have been worse, like Arseface, or I actually rather not go into what else it could have been. We bounced back down the hill and ran to the edge of the camp. The sergeant was sitting on a case of Castle Lager. He was happily sipping a dumpy as we approached. He looked at us with a smile on his face. Here, he said, with his hand holding an ice-cold beer stretched out to me. I reached out and he said, oops, sorry, and handed me a red smoke grenade instead. I took it without complaining and turned about and started back up the hill. We went up and down the hill 6 times that day. And it was a big hill. I was starting to learn that you should not say to the sergeant, and what you should and what you should not say to the sergeant, and could not do around him. I was also starting to catch on to how clever these old experienced policemen were. It's not easy to fool an old copper. A few days later, we were told to meet at the soccer field for PT. We had to find a partner to fetch a gum pole from the other side of the field. Being a fast runner, I got there first and picked the thinnest, lightest pole. Everybody else got the big, heavy poles, but Gideon and I had an easy time of it.